So, basically, these presentations I'll be discussing will be centered around an AP World History textbook called "Traditions and Encounters: A Global Perspective on the Past." So, Chapter 1: Before History. Before we ever have written records, and before we actually know for certain based on those records. So hominids, the family including humans and human ancestors, split off from chimpanzees roughly 5 million years ago. Now, like all animals, hominids must adapt to their natural environment or face extinction. To do this, hominids developed tools, language, and complex cooperative social structures in order to maximize their chances of survival. One of the first major human ancestors was a species known as Australopithecus. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this species existed from 4 to 1 million years ago. It was part of the hominid family, but it wasn't part of the Homo genus, meaning that it really wasn't it was not one of the later human hominids. Based on what we know about this species is mostly due to archaeology. For example, the discovery of the Lucy skeleton in 1974. Lucy was 3 feet 5 inches, 55 pounds, bipedal, had a brain of a volume of roughly 500 cubic centimeters, for comparison, a modern human has 1,400 cubic centimeters, and had limited speech capabilities, but also had an opposable thumb, so it could actually grab objects. Thus, Australopithecus could develop crude stone tools like choppers and scrapers. Lucy herself is estimated to have died roughly 3.5 million years ago. So later hominids, Homo erectus, existing from 2 million years ago to 200,000 years ago. This species had a larger brain capacity of 1,000 cubic centimeters, could develop better tools like the axe, and could control fire. With these capabilities, Homo erectus populated Afro-Eurasia. Then we get modern humans, us, Homo sapiens, sprouting around 200,000 years ago. Homo sapiens had the largest brains, particularly in the frontal regions, allowing for conscious and reflective thought, and had the most sophisticated tools in social organization. With these capabilities, Homo sapiens migrated everywhere around the world. And so this is just a nice little map showing the global spread of hominids and Homo sapiens. Our ancestors starting off in Africa and just moving on from there. So by 13,000 BCE, Homo sapiens were everywhere around the world. And from what we could find with archaeology, early Homo sapiens developed highly sophisticated tools for the time. In addition to the choppers, scrapers, and axes developed by our predecessors, humans also developed knives and bows and arrows. Bows and arrows being especially important because now more energy can be applied to weapons to take down bigger game. Early modern humans also lived in cave and hut-like dwellings to protect themselves from the elements, used fire for cooking food, heating their dwellings, scaring off animals, and used animal skins as coats in order to adapt to colder climates, say like in Siberia. With these capabilities, modern humans basically exterminated several large mammal species to extinction, although climate change may have accelerated this process. So, from archaeology, sadly, unfortunately, because these people didn't have records, archaeology is basically our best bet on finding information. And from looking at modern hunter-gatherer societies, we can safely say that nomadic existence is the pre-runner to advanced civilization. Paleolithic humans lived in groups of 30 to 50, usually based around families, and they divided labor along gender lines, a precursor for things to come. So because of the fact that you're moving around so much, you really can't acquire land or wealth because you just don't have time. You just can't carry it with you. You're moving around from one place to another to find your food. The most likely determinants of your status in your little group would be some things like age, hunting skill, fertility, or personality. But even then, these weren't like permanent titles, unlike in later civilizations. There is a possibility that there was gender equality related to food production, as the men would hunt and the women would gather plants. Now, one of the most difficult things about surviving as an early Paleolithic human was taking that big game, because it's really hard. Because if you're a human being and if you ever tried taking down an elephant, not exactly the easiest thing. In fact, you'll most likely die in the process. So in order to achieve the best chances of success, early modern humans used intelligent coordination and developed sophisticated weapons, and used animal skin disguises to trick animals and stampeding tactics, like, let's just scare these animals and scare them into running off a cliff and die and falling to their death. Not exactly the most efficient, but it achieved the purpose. This obviously requires planning and communication, which early modern humans did, thus improving their chances of succeeding in the harsh Paleolithic world. Now, we do have a few permanent Paleolithic settlements because food was so plentiful. These examples include like the Natufian society in modern Israel and Jordan, which relied on wild wheat and herding; the Jomon society in Japan, which relied on wild buckwheat and fishing; the Chinook society, which in the Pacific Northwest, which relied on berries, acorns, and salmon runs. These usually were groups of 1,000 or more. Now, just don't think Homo sapiens are the only ones around. There's also the Neanderthal peoples. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Okay. They flourished in Europe and Southwest Asia from 200,000 to 35,000 years ago. They were also found in Africa and East Asia. They were spiritual in the fact that they would elaborately bury their dead with goods. They inhabited the same areas as Homo sapiens for 10,000 years. And there's genetic evidence of some interbreeding between the two species, as it's been recently confirmed that today humans have roughly 4% of Neanderthal in us, basically. So human beings, due to our modern humans, due to our developed frontal lobes, could creatively think. They constructed flexible languages that allowed for communication of complex ideas, which is a massive advantage if you're trying to coordinate or pass down skills to future generations. More variety of tools were developed, such as stone blades, spear throwers, sewing needles, barbed harpoons, decorations like ornamental beads, necklaces, and bracelets, the bow and arrow, which I've said earlier, massively increases in human power, and cave paintings. Now we get to the Neolithic area, aka the New Stone Age. This, in the past, referred to a distinction stone tool production when stone tools actually became polished, but now refers to the early agricultural transition from 12,000 years ago to 6,000 years ago. In these early farming societies, men would herd animals rather than hunt them, and women would grow vegetation rather than just pick them and forage them. Now, if you're wondering how does agriculture spread, it primarily spreads through the slash and burn technique, in which human beings would basically slash a huge amount of trees, burn the remnants, and farm them. Unfortunately, this would also exhaust the soil and basically render it useless, so human beings had to constantly move. As they moved, they transported crop seeds from region to region, allowing agriculture to spread. And so we can see, the spread of agriculture, for example, starting in Mesopotamia and spreading out from there, moving to East Asia and spreading out from there, Mesoamerica, the Andean civilizations, the Amazon River, West Africa, Sudan, Africa, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. So with agriculture, you get more food, and the population starts growing massively. Now, with the rise of early agricultural societies, you get the emergence of villages and towns. One of the earliest examples was Jericho, around 8,000 BC, which existed around 8,000 BCE. Now, because of its concentration of wealth, they had to build a wall for protection by 7,000 BCE. We also get Çatalhöyük, a prominent village located in Turkey, which was occupied around from 7,250 to 5,400 BCE. we see now, because of the fact that you have agriculture, you also have crop surpluses, which not everyone has to farm. As a result, you can get specialization of labor, in which people can use their particular skills that are not related to food growing and use it for something else. Products of this are like pots, baskets, textiles, leather, stone, metal tools, wood carvings, carpets, beads, and jewelry, pottery, metallurgy, and textile production. Now we also get social distinctions as a result of these surpluses. Because of the fact that now you can stay in one place, you can also accumulate land and your food surplus and your food surpluses, which you can trade, which you can use as a display of wealth, or you can trade those food surpluses for luxury goods. An early example of this was the previously mentioned Kalahuyuk, in which prominent members of society were buried with very nice goods, whereas if you were a commoner, you weren't buried with as much nice stuff. Now, in terms of Neolithic culture, obviously, in order to farm productively, you have to closely observe the natural world, an early form of applied science. So you know when is the right time, when is the right weather, yeah, etc., etc., etc. We also get the earliest examples of religious worship, such as like thousands of clay figurines, drawings of pots, tool decorations, and other ritual objects. One of the most interesting developments is something called the Venus figurines, in which you have figurines of females with exaggerated sexual features, which show that these early people were clearly interested in fertility, because even if you have agriculture and your population is growing, it's still not an easy existence, because you can still die of disease, another group could kill you, you could die of hard labor, yada yada yada. We get the beginnings of urbanization as a result, when you have more and more people accumulating the same region, because there's more food and you get more population, but also people are attracted to those surpluses from the outside. You get accumulation of wealth, as I said before, craft specialization, social stratification, governance, because as you get more people, you need other people to rule over them. Cultural workers like priests, and the development of the city, which is a gradual process.